This short video is a record of a trip we recently made to Indonesia, flying from Mount Gambier to Adelaide and then Adelaide to Bali, before going yet to Kupang and north to Alor at the top of the screen and then Rote toward the bottom. One of the objectives was to get to Pura near Alor and then come back to Rote. First stop though was Bali. Bali is an interesting place, but it's also heavily populated by both Balinese and other Indonesians, and of course many tourists, so it's an incredibly busy place. Not exactly our cup of tea. In Bali, one of the principal places I wanted to see was the Benoa Harbor, a major fishing port in Indonesia, larger than any probably in Australia and many other places. Boats from here fish as far as St. Paul's Island in the southwestern Indian Ocean, so they're making trips of thousands of kilometers. And they're fishing for almost every kind of fish, from small bait fish to southern bluefin tuna and other pelagic species. Here they are mending seine nets under cover. There were many young fishermen on the boats, and all of them didn't mind having their pictures taken. And these in the yellow shirts were trainees from a fishing college. Like these young fellows here. And there were other people visiting as well. Our real objective was to get to eastern Indonesia, from which we would get up to Alor and down to Rote, having traveled through Kupang. In Kupang, one of the really notable places is the Pasar Malam, or the night market. It reflects what people like to eat, it reflects what resources are available, and a whole lot more about the culture. It's an incredibly interesting spot to visit for dinner. You choose a fish and they prepare it for you, and you can choose other things as well, but fish is of course the mainstay. You might find a chumi or a squid. You probably find some prawns, but fish is the bulk of the food that's available there. This clip goes on for a few minutes, but I did think that it was worth showing the whole thing so you get a good feel for the market.
Banyak orang terapung. Berapa? Dia sendiri. Tahan.
Dia tadi dan minta ini. Aku
Artinya auto
Another feature of Kupang is the bimo, or the little minibuses that get around town. They're a very cost-effective way to travel around town and to experience a good local atmosphere. They also play very loud music, so if you're not into loud music, it could be a little bit hard for someone. Kupang also has a significant fishing port. Many of these boats were from the island of Sulawesi, several hundred miles to the north, but they were fishing around Kupang because the abundance of fish is higher here than their own home, presumably. And here a group of young fellas are building what's called a rumpon, or in English a fish aggregating device. These are set out in 1,000 meters of water, anchored there, and the boats travel to them each day to fish for pelagic species that accumulate around them. This has been an industrial operation until now, but these people are making their own fads, spending about $1,000, we were told, to make one like this, which is a major investment for a small-scale fisher. This was the captain who was spending his money to build this fad, talking to James Riwu, our very close friend from Rote, and who's head of the aquaculture section in the Rote Fisheries Office. These are the anchors that are going to be used to hold the fad in place. Fishers carrying ice to their boat, people selling fish on the tabletops. These are all Sulawesi boats moored there, and a boat that recently returned from the Australian border with fish. And of course, fishing is not the only thing that goes on in a harbor, and there are plenty of colorful characters there. This is reef gleaning in the evening, and here are many of the small fishes that are taken by what's known as the bagan, or light fishing vessels, a good source of micronutrients. These are the adjacent fresh food markets. This is a panorama of Kupang Harbor. You can see it's quite a scenic place. And to the right here in the very distance, you can see the bagan, or these light fishing vessels. Alor is a smaller island, about probably closer to 200 miles north of Kupang. It's a 1 hour and 20-minute flight to get there. Lying between Alor and the island of Pantar is Pura. This is the island from which many of the fishermen at Scott Reef come. And I've wanted to get there for the last 19 years, after first seeing it on a flight that we took from Kuala Lumpur in Malaysia back to Darwin. And of course, at Pura, when you arrive, you're met by the local fishermen. And the fishing is as important here as it is anywhere else. This is the widow on the left and wife on the right of two of the fishermen I know. Here we're showing the families of some of those fishermen that I know from Scott Reef, the video of them taken down at the reef some years ago. We were fortunate enough to have an impromptu song played for us.
Pura moe baila na venga no mi Oe por tu paola tangolangada Nebo amole nubabanate Sana na imbarasa ajeka kue Angaba piaba abang mihoa kaku esera taingarakila sayang garian amba mempiena sanang na imbarasa ajeka kue angaba piaba ajae na inganga latala ambabana mapito minu iuluralu
Lebau sing bengalai Natang osi-osi Bahwa seniman Ada datang pinang Purna pangoa ogoa dia Lema osimbe Walang di seniman
In the Pura area, bubu, or fish baskets like these, are an important part of the fishing practice. And we saw a number of them being built, and you'll see in a little while some of them being used as well. And in addition, like many women in other similar places, they do a lot of weaving with natural fibers. I think this is from the lone tar palm, if I'm not mistaken. Marvel at the speed at which they're able to do this. With us on the trip was our friend Garry Kerr, a fisherman from Portland. And he spent quite a bit of time mixing it up with one of the senior people from the island. Here we see the bubu being used on the neighboring island of Ternate. This imagery was taken by Max Holba, who is one of the managers at the resort that we stayed in on the island of Alor. I'm very fortunate to be able to have him in the water, but kind of sad for the first time in my life I wasn't the one underwater doing the footage. I was on the boat and captured the other end of the operation. These are relatively heavy because of the weight of the materials themselves, but also the stones that they weigh them down with. So it's hard work for the fishermen to bring them up and get them onto the boat, or onto their sampan, as it's known. So after a fabulous visit to Alor and Pura, we headed to Rote, where we visited villages from both ends of the island, Nabrela to the south, Papela to the north. And fishing is important here too. And to fish for dinner is important. This is the main street of Ba'a, or the capital of Rote. And we walked the street, I think every day, for about 6 days that we were on the island. There was always something interesting to see, find out what people were buying and selling. And there was a lot of beautiful fresh produce to be had, but of course we didn't have a kitchen to cook it. This is the local market, an established market rather than the street side markets. And this was the walk back to our small hotel where we stayed. And it's coming up to Independence Day, so there were a lot of flags flying. And one very sad sheep. Probably an Independence Day meal. Church is a very important thing in Rote, whether you're Christian, Catholic, Protestant, or the mosque is important if you're a Muslim. And everybody attends religiously, so to speak. Oalaba is the port on Rote from where many of the boats that go to Scott Reef originate. There are Rotenese people who take their boats down, and there are people from Pura who come to Oalaba and find a boat owned by a Rotenese owner, and they take those down. As can be seen, there are relics of many older boats here. But some of those older boats are not beyond repair, and in fact, many of them were being repaired, almost unbelievably. Like, there was major work that having to be done on them. This is the channel from the community out to the open sea, and it's traveled by people going to and from the reef on a regular basis, so there's quite a path worn through here. This is one of the boats that I've been on down at Scott Reef, and it's currently under repair. You can see the replanking going on. And this is another one, the Solang Budi, also one that I've been on down at Scott Reef, having its ribs and planking replaced. And of course, like ports everywhere, there's many children. These were all assembled to watch the video that we showed about fishing at Scott Reef, and I think they all found it pretty interesting. As everybody else watching the video, and again you can see it really engaged, pointing out people that they know. Our next visit was to Mulut Seribu, or 1,000 Mouths. This is an area in the northeastern corner of Rote, which is full of passages and shallow water, and it's being used extensively for seaweed farming and a lobster farm, which you can see here. They're growing Panularis ornatus, the same species that we had in Torres Strait, and producing just under 2 tons per year, I understand. They look in good condition. These were 2 years old and had already grown to about 1 kilo, a very fast-growing species. Our next stop was Numberala, where it's become an internationally regarded surf spot and seaweed farming spot for the local population. It's a major part of their economy now. Here they're spreading out the seaweed to be dried, and it should take about 5 days, I believe, before it's dry enough to be packed away. It's fairly hard, heavy work. You're dragging large bundles of seaweed ashore, bringing them up the soft, sandy beaches, so you work for your money, that's for sure. There are also numerous fishing boats moored there at the moment because the squid fishing is very good. Our final fishing port that we visited was Papela. This is a place where there's a Rotenese village of Papela, and then there's the Tanjung Pasir or Sandspit, where the Bajo Laut people or sea gypsies live, which has been growing rapidly. This is a salt farm run by one of the Rotenese that supplies the salt for the people who go fishing down at Scott Reef. These are boats that have sailed about 600 miles to get to Papela from East Java and the community of Tondok. And if you see some of these, they're very low in the water because they're loaded with supplies that are going to last them for the next 2 months while they're down fishing at Scott Reef. These fishermen are some of the best down there and are able to dive quite deep. These are Rotenese shark fishing boats. One on the left is leaving, headed for Australian waters. The boat that's motoring away here really shouldn't be motoring to Australian waters. There's a bit of a problem at the moment with people, some people at least, believing that they can use motors when that's not permitted. There are numerous boats under repair or being built at the Tanjung, as this one is here. And like everywhere, the kids. This is a teak forest planted 40 years ago, and some of the teak is being used to build the boats, but unfortunately it's not really old enough to be good quality. The sisando and lontar palms are two of Rote's iconic features. This group here made the sisando music you've been listening to. And this man is up one of the lontar palms harvesting the syrup or the sap that comes from the male flowers. Here we are looking down at what he's up to, where he uses his knife to cut the ends of the flowers off each day to keep the flow of syrup coming. This has to be taken down and boiled to reduce it in the process here. It just so happened that while we were on Rote, there was a major football tournament by which the teams were able to progress up to higher leagues if they were successful. And we went along to watch the action, and it was fun to be there.